The desert wind howled through the wooden crosses of Mercy's Bend Cemetery, carrying with it the acrid taste of dust and death. Clara Whitmore stood motionless beside the fresh mound of earth that covered her husband, her black mourning dress a stark silhouette against the bleached landscape. The crude wooden marker bore his name in uneven letters. Samuel Whitmore, 1845 to 1887, taken too soon. Behind her, the townspeople of Mercy's Bend huddled in small groups, their whispers cutting through the wind like tumbleweeds across hardpan. Not one soul stepped forward to offer comfort. Clara could feel their eyes boring into her back, could hear the poison in their hushed words. Poor Sam, leaving a wife like that behind, Martha Hendricks muttered to her husband, her bonnet bobbing as she shook her head. Mark my words. She brings ill fortune. First her father's ranch burned, now this. Hush, woman, replied Jebediah Hendricks, though his eyes held the same suspicion. But it is peculiar how trouble follows some folk. Clara's gloved hands trembled as she clutched the small Bible to her chest. 3 days had passed since the ambush, and the images still burned behind her eyelids whenever she closed them, the setting sun painting the canyon walls crimson. Samuel's laughter as they rode toward home after selling cattle in Tucson. Then the crack of rifles, the thunder of hooves. Samuel's body jerking in the saddle before tumbling into the red dust. The horse thieves had come out of nowhere, shadows given form by greed and violence. By the time the posse from town arrived, drawn by her screams that echoed off the canyon walls, the bandits had vanished like smoke, taking Samuel's prize stallions and leaving only death in their wake. "Come along now, folks," Sheriff Ben Watson called out, his weathered face grim beneath his wide-brimmed hat. "Nothing more to be done here. Let the widow grieve in peace." But there would be no peace. Clara knew. The departing townspeople cast final glances her way, some pitying, most wary. In a frontier town like Mercy's Bend, a woman alone was an aberration, something to be feared or coveted, never simply accepted. The fact that Apache raids had increased in recent months only heightened their unease. A widow was vulnerable, and vulnerability invited danger to their doorsteps. As the last of the mourners disappeared down the dusty trail toward town, Clara remained. The cemetery sat on a small rise overlooking the vast expanse of the Sonoran Desert. Saguaro cacti stood like ancient sentinels, their arms raised in silent salute to the dead. The sky stretched endlessly overhead, a dome of deepening blue that seemed to swallow all sound, all sorrow, all hope. "Oh, Samuel," she whispered, her voice cracking. "What am I to do now?" The wind snatched her words away, carrying them into the void, somewhere in the distance. A coyote yipped, soon joined by others in a mournful chorus. The sound sent shivers down her spine. Night was coming, and with it, all the dangers of the desert. Clara forced herself to turn away from the grave. Each step felt like betrayal, like abandoning Samuel all over again. But the living had needs the dead did not, and she had to return to their small cabin before darkness fell completely. The walk back seemed endless. Her boots kicked up small clouds of dust with each step, the hem of her black dress already brown with dirt. The cabin appeared as the last rays of sunlight painted the mountains purple and gold. It sat alone, a quarter-mile from the edge of town, close enough to trade, but far enough to avoid the constant scrutiny of neighbors. Samuel had built it with his own hands, each log carefully fitted, each stone of the chimney precisely placed. Now it stood as empty as her heart. She paused at the threshold, key trembling in her hand. Behind her, she could hear the town coming alive with evening sounds, the clink of glasses from the saloon, the laughter of men freed from the day's labor, the slam of doors as proper folk secured themselves for the night. But around her cabin, there was only silence and the ever-present wind. Inside, everything remained as Samuel had left it. His coffee cup sat on the table, a dark ring staining the wood where he'd set it down 3 mornings ago. His rifle still hung above the fireplace, a cruel reminder that he'd chosen to take only his pistol on that fateful ride. Clara moved through the rooms like a ghost, lighting candles against the encroaching darkness. The larder was nearly empty. She'd need to go to Henderson's general store soon, though the thought of facing the townspeople again made her stomach clench. She knew what they would whisper when they thought she couldn't hear. Cursed, unlucky, a woman who brought death to those around her. She heated some beans and cornbread, forcing herself to eat though everything tasted like ash. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters. Every sound made her jump, made her reach for the shotgun she'd moved to lean against the kitchen table. The horse thieves were still out there somewhere. What if they came back? What if they decided a widow's cabin might hold treasures worth taking? As she prepared for bed, Clara caught sight of herself in the small mirror above the wash basin. Her face looked gaunt, her green eyes hollow with grief. At 28, she felt ancient. The woman who had laughed and danced at the harvest celebration just last month was gone, replaced by this hollow-eyed stranger. She lay in the bed she'd shared with Samuel, his pillow still bearing the indent of his head. The sheets smelled faintly of his tobacco and sweat, and she buried her face in them, finally allowing the tears to come. Great. Racking sobs shook her body as the reality crashed over her again and again. He was gone. She was alone. And in this harsh land, alone meant vulnerable, meant prey. Outside, the coyotes howled again, closer this time. Or was it wolves? The sound raised goosebumps on her arms. She pulled the covers higher, the shotgun within easy reach on the floor beside the bed. Every shadow that passed by the window could be a threat. Every creak of the cabin could herald danger. The night stretched on, sleepless and eternal. Clara found herself straining to hear over the wind, waiting for the sound of hoofbeats, of breaking glass, of danger materializing from the darkness. This was her life now, fear and solitude, suspicion and survival. When dawn finally broke, painting the desert in shades of rose and gold, Clara rose exhausted from her vigil. She dressed mechanically, her movements slow and deliberate. There was wood to gather, water to haul, a life to somehow continue living even when every fiber of her being wanted to simply lie down beside Samuel's grave and wait for the desert to claim her too. She stepped outside, squinting against the brilliant morning light. The desert stretched before her, beautiful and terrible in its vastness. Somewhere out there, Samuel's killers rode free. Somewhere out there, Apache warriors moved like shadows through the canyons. And here she stood, one small woman against all the violence and indifference of the frontier. The wind had died down during the night, leaving an eerie stillness in its wake. As Clara walked toward the woodpile, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Footprints in the dust around her cabin. Large, moccasined footprints that hadn't been there the evening before. Someone had been watching her in the night. The days blurred together like heat mirages on the desert floor. Clara's hands grew calloused from splitting wood. Her back ached from hauling water from the well, and her eyes burned from sleepless nights spent listening for danger. The moccasin prints had vanished with the morning wind, but the knowledge that someone had been watching haunted her every moment. On the fourth day after discovering the footprints, Clara knew she could no longer postpone the trip to town. The last of the cornmeal was gone, and she'd been living on water and the few withered vegetables from her garden. She dressed carefully, pinning her auburn hair beneath her bonnet and smoothing her least worn dress. The widow's weeds felt like armor, a black shield against the world's cruelty. The walk to Mercy's Bend had never seemed longer. Each step kicked up dust that clung to her skirts, and the morning sun beat down mercilessly despite the October date. As she entered the town's main street, conversations died mid-sentence. Women pulled their children closer, and men touched their hat brims in perfunctory greeting before quickly looking away. Henderson's general store stood in the middle of the street, its false front proclaiming "Goods and Sundries" in faded red letters. Clara steeled herself and pushed through the door, the bell above announcing her arrival with a mournful clang. Elijah Henderson looked up from his ledger, his thin face pinching with displeasure. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said, the greeting devoid of warmth. "I heard about Samuel. Terrible business." "Thank you. Mr. Henderson," Clara replied, keeping her voice steady. I need supplies. Flour, beans, salt pork if you have it. Henderson's pale eyes narrowed. That'll be cash on the barrel, I'm afraid. Can't extend credit under the circumstances. Clara felt heat rise in her cheeks. Samuel had always paid their debts promptly. What circumstances would those be, Mr. Henderson? Well, a woman alone. He shrugged, not meeting her eyes. No telling how long you'll be staying in these parts. Might be you'll head back east to family. I have no family back east. Clara said quietly, This is my home. A snort came from the corner where Jake Morrison sat whittling. Home for how long? Apache been seen not 10 miles from here. They catch wind of a woman alone. He drew his thumb across his throat in a crude gesture. That's enough, Jake, Henderson said, though without much conviction. Clara gathered her meager supplies, counting out the precious coins from the small purse Samuel had left. Each dollar spent was one less between her and destitution. As Henderson wrapped her goods in brown paper, she became aware of whispers from the back of the store. Brings death wherever she goes. Saw her talking to herself at the cemetery. Probably drove poor Sam to ride out alone. She grabbed her packages and fled, the bells chime following her like mocking laughter. Outside, she nearly collided with Mrs. Abigail Fletcher, the pastor's wife and the town's self-appointed moral guardian. Clara, Mrs. Fletcher said, her tone suggesting she'd tasted something sour. I've been meaning to speak with you. Clara shifted her packages, already knowing what was coming. Mrs. Fletcher. Several of the ladies have expressed concern about your situation. A young woman, living alone so far from town. It's not proper, and it attracts the wrong sort of attention. I'm hardly young anymore, Mrs. Fletcher, and it's my home. The older woman's eyes glittered with false sympathy. But my dear, think of the example you're setting. The Turner girl is already making noise about living independently. We can't have our young women thinking they can simply... She waved her hand vaguely. Exist without proper supervision. My husband is dead, Mrs. Fletcher. What would you have me do? Why, the Christian thing. Of course. Sell that property and use the money to travel somewhere more suitable. Perhaps you could find work as a governess. Or... Her eyes swept over Clara's worn dress. A seamstress. Clara straightened her spine. Good day, Mrs. Fletcher. She walked away, feeling the woman's offended glare burning into her back. But as she passed the saloon, worse was to come. A group of men lounged on the porch, already deep in their cups despite the early hour. Well, well, called out Bill Sawyer, a ranch hand known for his crude manner. The widow Whitmore graces us with her presence. Clara kept walking, but Sawyer wasn't finished. Might be you're looking for a new husband already. I could keep you warm at night, keep them Apache from your door. Laughter erupted from his companions. Clara's hands shook as she clutched her packages tighter, walking faster. Don't be shy now, Sawyer called after her. A woman needs protection out here. She practically ran the last stretch home, tears of humiliation burning her eyes. Inside the cabin, she dropped the packages on the table and sank into a chair, shaking. This was her life now. Harassment, suspicion, and isolation. That night, Clara set about creating defenses. She strung empty cans on wire around the cabin's perimeter, a crude alarm system Samuel had once shown her. She moved furniture to barricade the door and kept the shotgun loaded and within reach. Sleep, when it came, was fitful and filled with nightmares of painted faces and reaching hands. She woke to the sound of her alarm cans rattling, heart pounding. Clara grabbed the shotgun and crept to the window. Moonlight flooded the desert, turning everything silver and shadow. At first, she saw nothing. Then movement caught her eye, a figure melting from one shadow to another, circling her cabin with predatory grace. Apache. Clara's mouth went dry. The stories she'd heard rushed through her mind. Scalping, torture, women taken captive and never seen again. Her hands trembled on the gun stock. Should she fire a warning shot? Would that scare him off or bring more warriors? The figure paused, and in the moonlight, she caught a glimpse of a face painted with white clay, eyes that seemed to burn even in the darkness. He was studying her defenses, learning her weaknesses. Then, as silently as he'd come, he vanished into the night. Clara didn't sleep again. She sat in a chair facing the door, shotgun across her lap, jumping at every sound. When dawn finally came, she ventured outside to find new moccasin prints. These ones deliberate, meant to be seen, a message. You are being watched. 3 days later, the sandstorm hit. Clara had seen the brown wall approaching from the south, had rushed to secure everything she could, but nothing could have prepared her for the storm's fury. Wind howled like a living thing, driving sand through every crack and crevice. The windows rattled in their frames before one shattered, letting in a whirlwind of dust and debris. She huddled in the corner, a wet cloth over her face. As the storm raged, hours passed, or maybe days. Time lost meaning in the brown darkness. When it finally ended, Clara emerged to find devastation. Half her roof was gone, her water barrel overturned and empty, her meager supplies scattered and ruined. She stood in the wreckage of her home, despair washing over her like a black tide. How could she repair this alone? How could she survive without water, without shelter? The town wouldn't help. She'd been made clear on that. For the first time since Samuel's death, Clara considered giving up. Perhaps Mrs. Fletcher was right. Perhaps she should sell and leave. But as she bent to salvage what she could, her eye caught something that hadn't been there before the storm. Footprints in the newly deposited sand. Large, moccasined footprints leading from her broken water barrel to a spot near the well. There, half buried in the sand, sat a full water skin and a bundle wrapped in deer hide. Clara approached cautiously, half expecting a trap, but the bundle contained dried meat, cornmeal, and strips of leather that could be used for repairs. The water was clean and cool. Someone had come during the storm, seen her plight, and left supplies. The Apache. It had to be. But why? Everything she'd heard said the Apache were ruthless killers who showed no mercy to white settlers. Yet here was evidence of, what? Kindness? Strategy? A game she didn't understand? As she stood holding the gifts, Clara made a decision. She wouldn't run. She wouldn't give the town the satisfaction of driving her away. She would survive, with or without their help. And if a mysterious Apache warrior wanted to watch her, leave her supplies. Perhaps there was more to this story than anyone suspected. That night, as she made camp in what remained of her cabin, Clara left a small offering by the well, a piece of cornbread and a cup of precious coffee. It was gone by morning, with those now familiar footprints the only sign of her nocturnal visitor. The game, whatever it was, had begun. The morning sun painted the desert in shades of gold and crimson as Clara followed the footprints away from her cabin. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but curiosity overcame fear. The tracks led toward a cluster of rocks where ancient saguaros stood like sentinels. She gripped Samuel's Colt revolver, the weight both comforting and inadequate. Behind the largest boulder, he waited. The Apache warrior stood motionless, as if carved from the red stone itself. Tall and lean, with broad shoulders that spoke of strength. He wore traditional dress, a cotton shirt, breechcloth, and high moccasins. White clay painted his face in stark patterns. But it was his eyes that held Clara transfixed, dark as obsidian. They burned with an intensity that was neither hostile nor welcoming, but something far more complex. For a long moment, they regarded each other across the cultural chasm that separated their worlds. Clara's finger rested on the trigger, though she sensed that if he'd wanted to harm her, she would never have seen him coming. You've been watching me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He tilted his head slightly, and when he spoke, his English was broken but understandable. "You are alone, like rabbit in circle of wolves." Clara swallowed hard. "Are you one of those wolves?" Something that might have been amusement flickered in his eyes. "No, I am Taza Redhawk, of the Chiricahua." He gestured toward the distant mountains. The wolves, they come soon. Men who killed your man, they come back. Ice flooded Clara's veins. The horse thieves? How do you know? I track them. They camp 2 days north. They drink, they talk, they say, "Widow has gold hidden." They come to take. Clara's knees nearly buckled. She had no gold, nothing of value except the land itself, but men like that wouldn't believe her protests. When? Maybe tomorrow, maybe after. Taza stepped forward, and Clara forced herself not to retreat. In the harsh morning light, she could see scars on his arms, old wounds that spoke of battles survived. You must go. Leave this place. I have nowhere to go, Clara said, surprising herself with the steadiness of her voice. This is my home. Taza studied her for a long moment, and she had the unsettling feeling he was seeing far more than her surface. Home is not walls. Home is... He touched his chest. Here, where spirit lives. Pretty words, Clara said, a bitter edge creeping into her tone. But I need walls to keep the rain off, food to eat. This land is all I have left of my husband. Your husband is in the ground. You are above it. His bluntness should have angered her, but somehow it didn't. There was no cruelty in his words, just stark truth. The dead do not need houses. The living must choose, survive, or join them. Clara found herself stepping closer, drawn by something she couldn't name. Why do you care? Why help me? Taza's expression shifted, a shadow passing over his features. Once, I have wife. White soldiers come to our camp. They say we raid settlements. We did not, but they shoot anyway. His voice dropped. She died trying to protect our son. Both gone now. I know the look in your eyes. Same look I see in water's reflection many moons. The desert wind whispered between them, carrying the scent of sage and something wild. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. I'm sorry. Sorry does not bring back dead. But maybe, he paused, seeming to struggle with the words. Maybe one person helps another. Maybe that is enough. He reached into a pouch at his side and withdrew something wrapped in soft leather. Unwrapping it, he revealed a necklace of turquoise beads, beautifully crafted. This was hers, for protection. You take. Clara's hand trembled as she accepted the gift. The beads were cool against her palm, smooth from years of wear. I can't. You can. You will. Taza's voice brooked no argument. And you will learn. Tomorrow, when sun is high, come to Red Rocks near Dry Creek. I teach you to see danger before it sees you. The townspeople would, Clara began, then stopped. What did it matter what they thought? They'd already condemned her. Townspeople are fools, Taza said flatly. They see Apache. They see enemy. They see woman alone. They see weakness. Both wrong. He turned to go, then paused. Bring water. Bring dried meat if you have. And bring will to survive. He melted back into the landscape as if he'd never been, leaving Clara standing alone with the necklace clutched in her hand. She should have been terrified, should have run back to town screaming about Apache near the settlements. Instead, she felt something she hadn't experienced since Samuel's death. The next day, Clara told no one where she was going. She packed water and what little food she had, then made her way to the Red Rocks. The sun blazed overhead, and sweat trickled down her back beneath her dress. She'd worn her most practical clothing, though she suspected Taza would find even that impractical. He appeared as if from the stone itself, this time without the white clay paint. His face was weathered but younger than she'd expected, perhaps only a few years older than her own 28 years. You came, he said, and she heard approval in his tone. You thought I wouldn't. Many say they want to learn. Few do. He gestured for her to follow. First lesson, walking. Clara almost laughed. I know how to walk. Taza's look was patient but pointed. You walk like white woman, heavy, loud, come. For the next hour, he taught her to move silently across the desert floor, how to place her feet to avoid loose stones, how to use the shadows, how to breathe quietly. Clara struggled at first, her boots clumsy compared to his moccasins, but gradually she began to understand the rhythm of it. "Better," Taza said finally. "Now, seeing." He taught her to read the landscape like a book, how disturbed pebbles told of recent passage, how birds' behavior warned of predators, how the wind carried information to those who knew how to listen. Clara absorbed it all, her quick mind making connections. "You learned fast." Taza observed as they rested in the shade of an overhang. Most whites, they see desert as empty, dead, but desert is most alive place. Everything here fights to survive. Like you. Clara sipped her water carefully, aware of his gaze. "Why are you really doing this? Your people and mine, we're enemies." "Are we?" Taza picked up a handful of sand, letting it run through his fingers. "You have not shot at me. I have not taken your scalp. Where is enemy? You know what I mean. I know what others say. Apache are savage. Whites are invaders. Both sometimes true. But person is not their people. Person is..." He seemed to search for words. "Person is choices they make." The honesty in his voice made Clara brave. "The townspeople would say I'm betraying my race by being here with you. Same my people would say." Taza's smile was wry. "So we are both traitors, or both human. You choose which." As the afternoon wore on, Taza taught her more survival skills. How to find water by watching where the bees flew at sunset, which cacti held moisture, which plants could heal. He showed her how to make a simple snare, how to bank a fire to hide its smoke. "Why don't your people attack the town?" Clara asked as they prepared to part. "Everyone lives in fear of it." Taza's expression hardened. "Some want to... young warriors, hot with anger. But war brings only more war. My people are few now. Each death makes us fewer." He looked toward the mountains. "I choose different path. Not popular path, but maybe wiser." As the sun began its descent, Taza stood. "Tomorrow, same time, if you want." "I want," Clara said without hesitation. "But the horse thieves, I watch tonight. If they come, you will know." He pulled something from his pouch, a small whistle carved from bone. "Blow this. I hear, but only true danger, not for shadows and fear." Clara tucked the whistle into her pocket. "Thank you, Taza." He nodded once, then paused. "Your name, Clara. What does it mean?" "It means bright or clear." "Good name. Suits you." And with that, he was gone. That night, Clara sat by her damaged window, the revolver in her lap and the bone whistle around her neck alongside the turquoise beads. The desert darkness pressed in, but somehow it seemed less threatening now. She'd learned its language, or at least the first few words. Somewhere out there. Taza kept watch. The thought should have frightened her. An Apache warrior stalking around her home. Instead, she felt safer than she had since Samuel's death. She touched the turquoise beads, thinking of another woman who'd worn them, another woman who'd loved and lost. In the distance, a coyote called, and this time Clara heard what Taza had taught her to hear, not just an animal's cry, but information. The coyote was calm, hunting. No danger approached. For the first time in weeks, Clara allowed herself to truly rest, knowing that for tonight at least, she was not alone in the darkness. The bone whistle shrieked in the darkness, its piercing call shattering Clara's fitful sleep. She jerked upright, heart hammering. As the sound of splintering wood filled the night, they'd come. The horse thieves had found her. Clara grabbed the revolver and scrambled to the corner where she'd created a makeshift barricade. Through a crack in the boards covering her broken window, she could see torches moving outside. 3 men, maybe 4. Their drunken laughter carried on the night air. "Come on out, widow woman!" The voice belonged to Rex Hartley, a name she'd heard whispered in connection with the raid that killed Samuel. "We know you're in there. Know you got that gold your husband was hiding." "There's no gold," Clara shouted back, trying to steady her voice. "Samuel was a rancher, not a prospector." "Now don't lie to us, pretty thing." Another voice slurred. We heard him bragging in Tucson about striking it rich. Shame he had to go and make us kill him." Rage flooded through Clara, temporarily drowning her fear. These men spoke of Samuel's murder as casually as discussing the weather. Her finger found the trigger as the front door shuddered under a heavy boot. "Got us a fighter, boys," Hartley laughed. "That's fine. More fun that way." The door splintered inward on the second kick. Clara fired, the revolver bucking in her hands. A man yelped and cursed, but her barricade wouldn't hold long. Where was Taza? Had the whistle even reached him? A torch sailed through the broken window, landing on her bed. The dry straw mattress caught immediately. Flames leaping up to lick at the damaged roof beams. Smoke began filling the small space. "Burn her out!" someone shouted. "She'll come running soon enough." Clara coughed, eyes streaming, as she tried to decide between burning and facing the men outside. Then she heard it, a sound like wind through the canyon, followed by a strangled cry. Through the smoke, she saw a shadow move past the window, not clumsy like the thieves, but fluid, deadly. Another cry, this one cut short. The laughter outside turned to shouts of alarm. "What the hell? Apache!" Gunshots cracked through the night. Clara pressed herself against the wall as bullets punched through the thin wood. But the shots were wild. Panicked, she heard the meaty thud of bodies hitting ground, the clatter of dropped weapons. Then, suddenly, Taza was there. He materialized through the smoke like an avenging spirit, his face painted for war, a bloodied knife in one hand. Without a word, he grabbed Clara's arm and pulled her toward the door. "Wait!" She twisted back, grabbing the small tin that held her marriage certificate and Samuel's photograph, all she had left of him. They burst out into the night. Clara's first glimpse of the yard made her stomach lurch. 2 men lay motionless on the ground. A third was crawling away, whimpering. But Hartley still stood, his pistol raised. "Damn savage!" He fired, and Clara felt Taza jerk beside her. But the warrior didn't fall. Instead, he pushed Clara behind him and threw his knife in one smooth motion. Hartley's gun clattered to the ground as he clutched his shoulder, the blade buried deep. "You're dead," Hartley snarled, reaching for a second gun with his good hand. "Both of you! I'll see you!" His words ended in a gurgle as an arrow sprouted from his chest. He looked down at it in surprise before toppling backward. Clara spun to see 2 more Apache warriors emerging from the darkness, bows in hand. They spoke rapidly to Taza in their language, gesturing at the burning cabin and the bodies. "We go," Taza said, his voice tight with pain. Clara saw the dark stain spreading across his side where Hartley's bullet had found its mark. "Now, fire will bring others." One of the warriors, younger than Taza, with fierce eyes, said something sharp and gestured at Clara. Taza responded harshly, and the younger man subsided, though his glare could have melted stone. "Your friends don't approve," Clara said, as Taza led her to where horses waited. "Nantan is my cousin. He thinks I'm fool for helping white woman." Taza grimaced as he pulled himself onto a painted pony. "Maybe he is right, but fool or not, you come with us now. Town will blame you for this. Say you brought Apache to kill white men." Clara looked back at her burning home, everything she'd built with Samuel turning to ash and smoke. Then she looked at the bodies scattered in the yard. Taza was right. The town would never believe her version of events. To them, she'd gone from widow to traitor in a single night. "Can you ride?" Taza asked, and she heard the strain in his voice. "Yes." Clara mounted the spare horse, a sturdy mare with gentle eyes. "But you're hurt." "Later. Now we run." They rode hard through the darkness, following paths Clara couldn't see. The 2 other warriors flanked them, silent as ghosts. Behind them, the glow of the fire painted the sky orange. Soon, she knew, someone would see it. They'd find the bodies, see the Apache arrows, and the hunt would begin, after what felt like hours. Taza finally slowed. They'd entered a narrow canyon Clara had never seen before, its walls so high they blocked out most of the stars. He swayed in his saddle, and she urged her horse closer. "You're going to fall." "No." but his denial lacked conviction. The younger warrior, Nantan, spoke again, his tone now more worried than angry. Taza nodded wearily and guided them to where the canyon widened into a small valley. A hidden camp materialized from the shadows, perhaps a dozen wickiups arranged near a spring. Clara's arrival caused an immediate stir. Women and children peered out, their expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility. An elderly man emerged from the largest dwelling, his weathered face grave as he took in Taza's injury and Clara's presence. The conversation that followed was in Apache, but Clara didn't need translation to understand the debate. Gestures toward her, toward Taza's wound, toward the direction they'd come from painted a clear picture. She was unwelcome, possibly dangerous to them all. Finally, Taza spoke at length, his voice growing weaker. The elder listened, then studied Clara with eyes that seemed to see through her. At last, he nodded once and issued what sounded like orders. "You stay," Taza told her as women came forward to help him from his horse. "The grandfather says you are under my protection, but Clara—" He caught her hand as she dismounted, his grip still strong despite his injury. "Some will not accept. You must be careful. Show respect. Learn our ways." No one dared console the grieving widow until the fierce Apache claimed her shaking hands. Clara whispered, the words coming unbidden as she looked at their joined hands. His blood stained her fingers, binding them in a way she didn't fully understand. Taza's eyes widened slightly at her words, something shifting in their depths. "You see, sometimes the spirits speak through us. This is meant to be." The women pulled him away then, chattering in concerned tones as they guided him to a wickiup. Clara stood alone in the center of the camp, acutely aware of the eyes upon her. She was no longer just a widow. She was something far more complicated. A white woman under Apache protection. A bridge between two worlds that wanted nothing more than to destroy each other. Nantan approached, his English heavily accented but clear. "You bring death to us. White woman, soldiers will come." "I didn't ask for any of this," Clara replied, meeting his hostile gaze. "Those men killed my husband. They would have killed me. Taza chose to help. Taza thinks with heart, not head." Nantan spat to the side. "Heart gets warriors killed." An older woman intervened, speaking sharply to Nantan before taking Clara's arm. Her touch was not gentle, but not cruel either. She led Clara to a small wickiup and gestured for her to enter. Inside, Clara found blankets, a water jug, and a bowl of something that might have been stew. The woman pointed at Clara, then at the ground. The message clear. Stay here, alone in the strange dwelling. Clara finally allowed herself to feel the full weight of what had happened. Her home was gone. The men who'd killed Samuel were dead, but there was no satisfaction in it, only a hollow ache. And now she sat in an Apache camp, her life bound to a warrior who'd risked everything to save her. Through the wickiup's opening, she could see the stars wheeling overhead, somewhere in Mercy's Bend. They were probably organizing search parties. They'd find the burned cabin, the bodies, and draw their own conclusions. The widow Whitmore hadn't just brought bad luck. She'd brought Apache raiders to their doorstep. There would be no going back now. Clara touched the turquoise beads at her throat, thinking of another woman who'd worn them, who'd loved an Apache man and died for it. Was this her fate too? To be caught between two worlds until one or both destroyed her? But then she remembered Taza's eyes as he'd pushed her behind him, shielding her with his own body, remembered the strength in his grip as he'd held her shaking hands. Whatever came next, she wasn't facing it alone. Outside, she could hear the camp settling for what remained of the night. Children hushed by mothers, dogs curling up by dying fires, guards taking their positions. An alien world. Yes, but a world that had offered her protection when her own people had turned away. Clara lay down on the unfamiliar blankets, her body exhausted but her mind racing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears. But tonight, for the first time since Samuel's death, she was surrounded by people who, reluctantly or not, would stand between her and danger. As sleep finally claimed her, she thought she heard drums in the distance, a heartbeat rhythm that seemed to echo the words that had sealed her fate. No one dared console the grieving widow, until the fierce Apache claimed her shaking hands. Dawn broke over the hidden canyon, painting the walls in shades of rose and gold. Clara woke to unfamiliar sounds, children laughing, women calling to each other in Apache, the soft nickering of horses. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back, and with it, the weight of her new reality. She emerged from the wickiup to find the camp already alive with activity. Women tended fires and prepared food, their movements efficient and purposeful. Children ran between the dwellings, their games punctuated by squeals of delight. It was so utterly normal, so human, that Clara felt a pang of surprise. What had she expected? The savage encampment of dime novel tales. The older woman from the night before appeared at her elbow, thrust a water jug into her hands, and pointed toward the spring. Clara understood. If she was to stay, she would work like everyone else. At the spring, she found other women filling containers. They fell silent at her approach, watching with guarded expressions. Clara nodded respectfully and filled her jug, trying to mirror their movements. One young woman, perhaps 16, giggled at Clara's clumsy attempts to balance the heavy vessel on her hip as they did. "Like this," the girl said in careful English, adjusting Clara's posture. "You carry like white woman, all arms. We carry with whole body." "Thank you," Clara replied, grateful for even this small kindness. "What's your name?" "Ayana means eternal bloom." The girl's smile was shy but genuine. "You are the one Taza saved?" "Yes. Is he? How is he?" Ayana's expression grew serious. "The bullet went deep. Grandmother tends him. She has strong medicine, but—" She shrugged, a gesture that said everything. Clara's chest tightened. She followed the women back to camp, her mind on the wounded warrior who'd risked everything for her. After delivering the water, she gathered her courage and approached the wickiup where they'd taken Taza. Nantan stood guard outside, his disapproval evident. "He rests. You stay away." "Please," Clara said. "I have some knowledge of wounds. My husband taught me." "White medicine?" Nantan scoffed. "You would poison him?" An elderly woman emerged from the wickiup, the one Ayana had called grandmother. Her face was a map of years and wisdom, her dark eyes sharp as she studied Clara. She spoke to Nantan, who argued back, but grandmother's tone brooked no disagreement. Finally, she beckoned Clara inside. The wickiup smelled of herbs and smoke. Taza lay on a bed of furs, his bronze skin pale beneath its natural color. The wound in his side had been cleaned and packed with some kind of poultice, but Clara could see the inflammation spreading. "Infection," she said, reaching out instinctively before catching herself. "May I?" Grandmother watched intently as Clara examined the wound. The bullet was out. That was good, but the wound needed different treatment. Clara thought of the medical supplies in her burned cabin, now useless ash. "Honey," she said suddenly. "Do you have honey? And alcohol? Whiskey? Anything strong?" Grandmother's eyes lit with understanding. She spoke rapidly to someone outside, and within minutes, both items appeared. Clara worked carefully, cleaning the wound with the alcohol while Taza remained mercifully unconscious. The honey went on next, an old treatment Samuel had learned from an army surgeon. As she worked, she became aware of Taza's eyes on her. He was awake, watching her minister to him with an expression she couldn't read. "You should be resting," she said softly. "You learned this from your husband." His voice was weak but curious. "He served as a medic in the war between the states," said honey keeps wounds from festering. She smoothed the poultice back in place. "Though your grandmother's herbs are probably just as good. She is not my grandmother. She is grandmother to all." Taza caught her hand as she moved to pull away. "Why do you help? I brought you to danger. You saved my life." "That is not answer." His dark eyes searched hers. "Your people will call you traitor now. Say you lay with Apache. Your reputation was already ruined." Clara finished. "A widow alone might as well be a fallen woman in their eyes. At least here." She paused, surprised by her own words. At least here I'm judged by my actions, not their fears. Over the following days, Clara found her place in the camp's rhythm. She hauled water, learned to grind corn on stone medites, helped prepare meals. The work was hard, harder than anything she'd done before, but there was satisfaction in it. Slowly, some of the women began to accept her presence, if not embrace it. Ayanna became her guide and translator, teaching her basic Apache words and customs. Never step over a man's weapons, she instructed. Never touch sacred items. When the men speak of war or hunting, we do not listen. But I want to understand. Understanding comes with time. First, you must show respect. Clara also learned the camp's precarious position. They were a small band, perhaps 50 souls, led by the elder called grandfather. Many were women and children, refugees from larger conflicts. They survived by staying hidden, moving when necessary, avoiding the soldiers who would force them onto reservations. Taza believes in peace. Ayanna explained one evening as they prepared a meal of rabbit and agave. He thinks we can find way to live alongside whites. Others say he is fool. What do you think? Ayanna's young face grew thoughtful. I think the world changes whether we wish it or not. Better to change with it than be crushed by it. Taza recovered slowly. Clara tended him daily, their conversations growing longer as his strength returned. He told her of his childhood, of learning to hunt and track from his father, of the pride in being Apache. She shared memories of meeting Samuel, of building their life together, of dreams that died with him. You still grieve? Taza observed one afternoon as she changed his bandages. Does it ever stop? No, but it changes, becomes part of you, like scar. He touched an old wound on his shoulder. This from Mexican soldier when I was young. Hurt terrible then. Now, just reminds me I survived. Their closeness didn't go unnoticed. Clara felt the eyes watching, heard the whispers she couldn't understand. Nantan's hostility grew sharper, and even some of the women who'd been warming to her pulled back. One night, as Clara helped serve the evening meal, she overheard raised voices from grandfather's wickiup. Nantan's voice was loudest, angry and insistent. Taza's responses were calmer but firm. She caught her name several times, and the word soldiers. Ayanna appeared at her side. They argue about you, she said quietly. Nantan says you endanger us all, that soldiers will come looking for white women. Others agree. And Taza, he says you are under his protection, that honor demands. Ayanna frowned, searching for words. He uses old words, words about spirit bonds and paths crossing. Grandfather listens, but... That night, Clara lay awake wrestling with guilt. These people had shown her kindness, and she'd brought danger to their door. Perhaps she should leave, try to make it to another town where she wasn't known. But the thought of leaving Taza, of returning to that world of suspicion and isolation, made her chest tight with panic. A sound outside made her freeze. Footsteps, trying to be quiet. She reached for the knife Ayanna had given her, heart pounding. The entrance flap moved, and a figure slipped inside. By the faint moonlight, she recognized Nantan. You leave, he hissed. Tonight. Take horse. Ride east. Never come back. Taza said, Taza is blinded by pretty face and sad story. Nantan moved closer, and Clara gripped the knife tighter. You think you first white woman he helps? No, but others were smart. They left before bringing destruction. I have nowhere to go. Not my concern. Better you die in desert than bring soldiers here. His hand moved to his own knife. Choose. Leave with horse and supplies. Or what? Taza's voice came from the entrance, cold as winter wind. He stood silhouetted against the stars, one hand pressed to his still healing wound. You threaten woman under my protection, cousin. Nantan spun. You should be resting. I should be teaching my cousin about honor. Taza entered, and despite his injury, there was danger in every line of his body. Clara stays until she chooses to go. Anyone who harms her answers to me. You would fight your own blood for white woman. I would fight anyone who breaks sacred law of hospitality. Taza's voice dropped lower. Do not test me. Nantan, you will not like result. For a moment, violence hung in the air like smoke. Then Nantan backed down, muttering curses as he left. Taza sagged against the Wikiup's frame, and Clara rushed to support him. You shouldn't be up. Shh. He leaned into her, his weight warm and solid. Are you hurt? No, just frightened. She helped him sit, noting the fresh blood seeping through his bandages. You've torn your wound open. Worth it. His hand found her face in the darkness, thumb brushing her cheek. I meant what I said. You stay as long as you wish. This is your home now, if you want it. Clara felt tears slip free. Home. Such a simple word for such a complicated thing. I don't want to cause trouble between you and your people. My people must learn the world changes. We can change with it or fight until none remain. His forehead touched hers. You are part of that change. Clara, part of my change. Outside, drums began again, their rhythm matching her heartbeat. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Nantan wouldn't give up easily. The soldiers might indeed come. But tonight, in this moment, she was exactly where she belonged. Teach me, she whispered. Everything, your language, your ways. If I'm to stay, I want to truly belong. Taza's smile was answer enough. The news came with a dust-covered rider 3 weeks later. Clara was helping Ayana prepare pine nuts when the scout thundered into camp. His painted pony lathered with sweat. His rapid Apache words sent ripples of alarm through the peaceful morning. What is it? Clara asked, watching as women began gathering children and men reached for weapons. Ayana's face had gone pale. White men search the canyons. Many riders with guns. They show picture of white woman. Ask if Apache have seen her. Clara's blood ran cold. They were looking for her. Despite the intervening weeks, despite the distance from Mercy's Bend, her past had found her. Taza appeared at her side, fully healed now and radiating the controlled energy of a warrior preparing for battle. They are 2 days behind our scout. We must move camp. No, Clara said, surprising herself with the firmness of her voice. Running will only make things worse. They'll keep searching, and your people will suffer for hiding me. You would go back to them? There was something raw in Taza's question. Never. Clara met his eyes steadily. But perhaps there's another way. Grandfather called a council. Clara sat beside Taza, aware of the honor and controversy of her inclusion. Nantan glowered from across the fire circle, his faction clearly growing as the danger materialized. The debate raged in Apache, but Clara understood enough now to follow the main points. Some wanted to fight. Others advocated melting deeper into the mountains. A few supported Nantan's demand that Clara be sent away immediately. When Taza translated grandfather's question to her, what did she propose? Clara stood, her mind racing. Let me go to them, she said, raising her hand against the immediate protests. Not to surrender, but to tell them a story. I'll say I was captured, that I escaped, that the Apache who took me went south into Mexico. If I'm convincing enough, they'll stop searching here. They will not believe. Nantan scoffed. White woman defending Apache? They will think you bewitched. Then I'll give them what they expect. Clara's mind was forming a plan. I'll tell them I was held prisoner, treated roughly. I'll cry. Seem traumatized. White men expect women to be weak and hysterical after such an ordeal. I'll give them exactly that. Taza shook his head. Too dangerous. If they suspect, they won't. Clara turned to address the council. I know these men, how they think. They want to be heroes rescuing a damsel. Give them that story, and they'll stop looking for complications. The council argued late into the night. Finally, grandfather raised his hand for silence. His weathered face was grave as he studied Clara, then spoke at length. Ayana translated softly. He says you have courage of Apache warrior in white woman's body. He says the spirits brought you here for reason. If you wish to try this path, we will prepare you. The next morning, the women worked to make Clara look the part of a traumatized captive. They tore her dress strategically, added dirt and scratches, made her hair wild. The transformation was disturbing in its effectiveness. Taza watched the preparations with a storm in his eyes. When they had a moment alone, he pulled her close. "If anything feels wrong, you run. Promise me." "I promise." Clara touched his face, memorizing the strong lines. "This will work. Trust me." "I trust you. It's them I do not trust." He pressed something into her hand, a small carved stone on a leather cord. "Protection charm. My mother made it for me when I was boy." Clara kissed him then, not caring who saw. It was fierce and desperate, a promise and a goodbye, all at once. When they parted, she saw her own fear reflected in his eyes. The plan was simple. Clara would stumble into the search party's path a few miles from camp. Looking like she'd been wandering for days, Taza and several warriors would shadow her, ready to intervene if necessary. As Clara made her way down the canyon, her heart hammered against her ribs. Each step took her further from the safety she'd found and back toward the world that had rejected her. But these people, Taza's people, her people now, had risked everything for her. She owed them this much. She heard the horses before she saw them. 20 men, maybe more, armed and alert. Clara took a deep breath, thought of every melodrama she'd ever seen, and stumbled into view with a convincing cry of distress. "Help! Oh, thank God! White men, please help me!" The riders reined in sharply. She recognized the lead man, Marshal Jim Crawford from Tucson, a hard but fair lawman. His weathered face showed shock as he dismounted. "Ma'am, are you Mrs. Whitmore? Clara Whitmore?" Clara let herself collapse, sobbing with calculated hysteria. "Yes, oh, Marshal, it was horrible. They killed Samuel and took me. I've been prisoner for weeks." Crawford wrapped his coat around her shoulders while his men formed a protective circle. "You're safe now, ma'am." "Where are the Apache who took you?" "South," Clara gasped between sobs. "They argued. Some wanted to go to Mexico. When they broke camp to move, I ran. I've been wandering for days." "How many were there? Which band?" Clara made her answers vague. "Traumatized." She described warriors who could have been any Apache, placed their camp in canyons miles from the actual location. Throughout her performance, she felt Taza watching from the rocks above, felt the tension of arrows nocked and ready. "We should get her back to town," Crawford's deputy suggested. "She needs a doctor, and the ladies can tend to her proper." "No!" Clara's panic was real now. "I can't go back to Mercy's Bend. They all hate me there, blame me for Samuel's death. Please, Marshal, just take me to Tucson. I have a cousin there who might take me in." Crawford studied her with lawman's eyes, and for a moment Clara feared he saw through her act. Then his expression softened. "Of course, ma'am. We'll escort you to Tucson. But first, can you tell us anything else? Did you see other captives? Other raids planned?" Clara shook her head weakly. "They spoke their heathen language. I understood nothing. I just want to forget it all happened." The men exchanged glances. A traumatized woman was no use for intelligence. Crawford helped her onto a spare horse, his movements gentle. "Don't worry, Mrs. Whitmore, you're safe now. We'll see you to Tucson and make sure you're cared for." As they rode away, Clara risked one glance back. She saw nothing, but she felt Taza's presence, felt his struggle not to come after her. "Trust me," she thought fiercely. "This is the only way." The ride to Tucson took 2 days. Clara maintained her act, flinching at sudden movements, crying quietly when she thought the men were watching. She told her rehearsed story repeatedly, each telling cementing it in the men's minds. By the time they reached Tucson, even she almost believed it. At the edge of town, Clara turned to Crawford. "Marshal, I need to tell you something. The Apache who took me, they weren't all bad. One of the women gave me water when the men weren't looking. I think they're just trying to survive, like everyone else." Crawford's face hardened. "Don't let their tricks fool you. Ma'am, Apache are savages, pure and simple. You're lucky to be alive." Clara bit her tongue, playing the part of the confused victim. "Of course, Marshal, I'm grateful to be safe." In Tucson, Crawford took her to a boarding house run by a widow named Mrs. Ellen Patterson. The woman clucked over Clara's appearance. immediately taking charge. "You poor dear, don't worry. We'll have you sorted in no time. A hot bath, decent food, proper clothes." Clara endured the ministrations, all the while planning her next move. She needed to stay long enough to make her story believable, then find a way to disappear. But as Mrs. Patterson helped her bathe, she saw something that made her blood run cold. "My word," the older woman gasped, staring at Clara's neck. "What's this?" The turquoise necklace. Clara had forgotten to remove it, grown so used to its weight. Her mind raced for an explanation. I traded for it, before, with a traveling merchant. Samuel bought it for me." She let tears well up. "It's all I have left of him." Mrs. Patterson's expression softened. "Of course, dear, of course." But Clara saw the doubt in her eyes, the questions forming. She'd made a mistake, potentially a fatal one, that night as she lay in the too-soft bed. Clara fingered Taza's protection charm hidden in her torn dress. 3 days. She'd give it 3 days to let the search die down. Then she'd find a way back to him. Outside her window, Tucson bustled with evening activity, somewhere out in the desert. Taza waited and watched. Clara closed her eyes and let herself remember his touch, his smile, the way he'd looked at her in the firelight. "Wait for me," she whispered to the darkness. "I'm coming home." But she couldn't shake the feeling that her carefully constructed lie was already beginning to unravel, and that the price of protecting those she'd come to love might be higher than she'd imagined. The third night in Tucson, Clara's carefully maintained facade began to crack. She'd played her role perfectly, the traumatized widow slowly recovering, grateful for Christian charity. But as she sat at Mrs. Patterson's dinner table, listening to the other boarders discuss the Apache problem, her composure finally slipped. "I say we should hunt them all down like the animals they are," declared Mr. Harold Fitzgerald, a mine owner with soft hands and hard eyes. "Every last savage cleared from the territory." Here, agreed Thomas Brennan, a merchant who'd never ventured beyond town limits. "Did you hear about the Carlson Ranch? Burned to the ground. Whole family slaughtered." Clara's fork clattered against her plate. "That's not true. The Carlson fire was an accident. Their own cook admitted it, and the family moved to California months ago." The table fell silent. All eyes turned to her. "How would you know that, Mrs. Whitmore?" "Mrs. Patterson asked carefully. "You've been away." Clara's mind raced. Samuel knew them before. He mentioned they were planning to leave. Still, Fitzgerald pressed on. "The savages are a menace. Why, this poor woman is proof enough of their barbarism. They didn't—" Clara caught herself, but too late. "That is, my experience was complex." "Complex?" Brennan leaned forward, eyes glittering with suspicious interest. "Do elaborate, Mrs. Whitmore." The room grew oppressive. Clara felt trapped, her lies tangling around her like rope. Through the window, she glimpsed movement in the shadows. Or was it her imagination? "I'm feeling unwell," she said, standing abruptly. "Please excuse me." She fled to her room, hands shaking as she bolted the door. 3 days. She'd stayed 3 days as planned, but now every hour felt more dangerous. Tomorrow, she decided. Tomorrow she'd leave. But morning brought Marshal Crawford to the boarding house door. "Mrs. Whitmore," he said, hat in hand but eyes sharp. "I wondered if we might speak privately." They sat in Mrs. Patterson's parlor, the air thick with unspoken suspicions. Crawford pulled out a small leather pouch. "Curious thing," he began conversationally. "We went back to search that area where you said the Apache camp was. Found nothing, but we did find this." He upended the pouch. Samuel's pocket watch tumbled out, the one Clara thought lost forever in their burned cabin. "Found it near some tracks," Crawford continued. "Tracks leading to a hidden canyon we'd never have found without Apache guides. Friendly Apache from the reservation, who were very interested when I described the warriors you mentioned." Clara kept her face carefully neutral. "I don't understand." They said your descriptions didn't match any known raiders, but they did match a peace band led by an old chief called Grandfather. Band that's been avoiding the reservation, keeping to themselves. Crawford leaned back. Now why would you lie about which Apache took you, Mrs. Whitmore? I was confused, frightened, or protecting them. His voice hardened. See, I've been thinking. Your husband's murdered. You're taken captive, but you escape looking remarkably healthy for a woman held by savages for weeks. Then you're eager to leave town. Put distance between yourself and anyone who might ask questions. Clara lifted her chin. What exactly are you accusing me of? Marshal? Maybe nothing. Maybe something. Crawford stood. I'm posting men to watch the roads. For your protection, of course. Wouldn't want you wandering off again, getting lost. After he left, Clara paced her room like a caged animal. She was trapped. Worse, she'd potentially led them to Grandfather's band. She had to warn them. Had to get back to Taza. That night, she made her move. Dressed in dark clothing borrowed from the laundry line. She slipped out through the kitchen window. The streets of Tucson were quiet, but she could feel eyes watching. Crawford's men, no doubt. She made it 3 blocks before they emerged from the shadows. Evening, Mrs. Whitmore, Deputy Banks said pleasantly. Bit late for a stroll. I couldn't sleep, Clara said. The night air helps. I'll bet. Why don't we escort you back? Dangerous for a lady alone. They gave her no choice. But as they walked, Clara heard it. A Whip Poor Will's call. Except no Whip Poor Wills lived this far west. Her heart leaped. Taza. The call came again. Closer. The deputies heard it too, hands moving to their guns. What was... The first deputy dropped, a war club striking him down silently. The second spun, gun half drawn, but Taza was already there. The brief struggle ended with the deputy unconscious in the dirt. Clara. Taza materialized from the shadows, and she flew into his arms. Are you hurt? No, but we have to warn the others. Crawford knows about the band, about Grandfather. Already done. We moved camp after you left. His hands framed her face. I could not stay away. Each night, I watched. When I saw them trap you, we have to go, now, before they wake up. But as they turned to flee, lanterns blazed to life around them. Crawford stepped out, rifle leveled, a dozen men flanking him. Thought you might try something like this, the marshal said grimly. Step away from her. Savage. No. Clara moved in front of Taza. You don't understand. I understand plenty. You've been corrupted by this heathen, turned against your own kind. Crawford's voice dripped disgust. Stand aside, or I'll move you. Then you'll have to shoot me. Clara spread her arms, shielding Taza with her body. Because I won't let you hurt him. Clara, no. Taza said low in her ear. Do not sacrifice for me. It's not sacrifice, she said firmly. It's choice. The standoff stretched taut. Then Crawford noticed something that made his eyes widen. The turquoise necklace at Clara's throat, fully visible now. Apache jewelry. He breathed. You're wearing... My God, you've taken up with him. Willingly. More than that, Clara said, her voice carrying clearly. I love him, and if that makes me a traitor in your eyes, so be it. Murmurs rippled through Crawford's men. Some looked disgusted, others uncertain. The marshal's face flushed red. You'd choose a savage over your own people, over civilization? I'd choose a man who saved my life over those who left me to die. I'd choose honor over hypocrisy. Clara felt Taza's hand find hers, their fingers intertwining. You talk of civilization while plotting to slaughter innocent people. You speak of God while practicing hate. Who's the real savage here? Enough. Crawford raised his rifle. Both of you are under arrest. You'll hang for this. Woman, and him? The shot rang out, but not from Crawford's gun. The marshal spun, clutching his shoulder as his rifle clattered away. From the rooftops, Apache warriors appeared, not just from Grandfather's band, but others too, many others. Nantan dropped down beside them, smoking rifle in hand. Grandfather says family protects family, he told Taza in English, loud enough for all to hear, even stubborn cousins who love foolish white women. More Apache emerged from the shadows. Crawford's men found themselves vastly outnumbered, their guns now pointing at the ground. An elder Clara didn't recognize rode forward on a painted horse. He spoke in accented but clear English. "Marshal Crawford, you seek war with Apache? I seek justice." Crawford ground out through pain. "Justice." The elder gestured to Clara and Taza. "This woman chose her path. This warrior protected innocent. Where is crime? Where is justice in hunting them? She's white, he's Apache. It's unnatural." "Love is never unnatural," the elder said simply. "Only hate is." He turned to address Crawford's men. "You go now. Tell others what you saw. Apache seek no war, but will not let you take these two. Choose. Leave in peace, or water this ground with blood." The men looked to Crawford, who clutched his wounded shoulder. The fight had gone out of them. Faced with superior numbers and the elder's calm authority. "This isn't over," Crawford said finally. "The army will hear about this. They will do nothing," the elder interrupted. "We have treaty. We keep peace. But treaty says nothing about who person chooses to love." He smiled slightly. "Go now, before young warriors grow impatient." As Crawford's men retreated, carrying their wounded marshal, Clara turned to Nantan in amazement. "You came for us?" Nantan looked embarrassed. "Grandfather ordered, said if Taza chooses dangerous path of loving white woman, family must make sure he survives it." He glanced at his cousin. "Besides, someone must keep him from doing more foolish things." "Thank you," Clara said simply. Nantan studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "You stood between him and guns. Maybe you are not so weak as I thought." He almost smiled. "Still foolish, but brave. Like him." As the Apache melted back into the night, Taza pulled Clara close. "You would have died for me, and you for me." She touched the protection charm at her throat. "It seems your mother's medicine is strong." "Not medicine," Taza corrected softly. Love is strongest protection." They rode out of Tucson as dawn broke, heading not for the hidden camp but somewhere new. The confrontation had changed things. Lines had been drawn. Choices made public. There would be consequences. But as Clara rode beside Taza, their hands linked across the space between horses, she felt no regret. She'd found something worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for, and in choosing love over fear, she'd discovered a strength she never knew she possessed, behind them. Tucson woke to gossip and speculation. Ahead lay an uncertain future, but in this moment, riding toward the sunrise with her chosen family around her, Clara was exactly where she belonged. 3 months had passed since the confrontation in Tucson. Clara stood before Judge William Thornton in the small courthouse of Silver Creek, a town that straddled the line between civilization and frontier. Beside her, Taza wore his finest clothes, a mixture of Apache tradition and white man's fashion that drew stares from the packed gallery. "Mrs. Whitmore," Judge Thornton began, peering over his spectacles. "You stand accused of consorting with hostiles, abandoning your race, and conduct unbecoming a Christian woman. How do you plead?" "Not guilty, Your Honor," Clara said, her voice clear and strong. "And I challenge the very basis of these charges." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Clara's return to face justice had shocked everyone. Most assumed she'd disappear into the wilderness forever. Instead, here she stood, demanding her day in court. The prosecutor, a pompous man named Bartholomew Hayes, rose. "Your Honor, this woman was found in the company of Apache warriors, wearing their heathen jewelry, defending them with violence." "I defended myself," Clara interrupted, "and I wore a gift from someone who saved my life when my own people left me to die." "Order!" Thornton banged his gavel. "You'll have your chance to speak, Mrs. Whitmore." The trial that followed was unlike anything Silver Creek had seen. Clara had come prepared. She'd brought witnesses, the Mexican trader who'd seen the horse thieves boasting about killing Samuel, the reservation agent who confirmed grandfather's band had been peaceful for years, even Mrs. Patterson from the boarding house, who reluctantly admitted Clara had shown no signs of mistreatment. But it was Clara's own testimony that held the courtroom spellbound. "After my husband's murder," she said, "I was alone. The good people of Mercy's Bend treated me like a pariah, a curse. Men propositioned me, women shunned me. The very people who should have offered Christian charity turned their backs." She looked directly at the gallery, meeting the eyes of those who'd come to gawk. "Then Apache warriors killed the men who murdered my husband. A warrior named Taza Redhawk risked his life to save mine. His people took me in, fed me, protected me. They showed me kindness when Christians showed only cruelty." "And you fell in love with this savage?" Hayes sneered. "I fell in love with a man," Clara corrected. "A man who showed more honor and compassion than any so-called civilized person I'd met." "Your Honor," Hayes said, "this woman admits to living as an Apache, taking their ways, even their religion." "What law have I broken?" Clara demanded. "Show me the statute that forbids love. Show me where it's written that compassion is illegal." Judge Thornton raised his hand. "The law is clear on fornication. We are married." Taza spoke for the first time, his English careful but firm, "by Apache custom and by Christian ceremony." Another gasp from the gallery. Clara smiled. "Father Miguel at the San Xavier mission performed the ceremony last month. We have the certificate." Hayes sputtered. But he's a heathen." "I was baptized at the mission as a child," Taza said calmly. "My mother insisted, said it would help in white man's world. She was right." The trial continued for hours. Hayes brought witness after witness to testify about the danger of Apache, the unnaturalness of racial mixing, the threat to Christian society. Clara and her lawyer, a young idealist named Frederick Walsh, countered each point. Finally, it came time for closing arguments. Hayes stood before the jury, face red with passionate conviction. "Gentlemen, you must make a stand. If we allow this abomination, where does it end? Will we let our daughters marry Chinese? Our sons take Mexican wives? The purity of our race, our civilization itself, depends on your verdict." Walsh rose, his youth balanced by eloquence. "Gentlemen of the jury, you're asked to convict a woman whose only crime was choosing love over loneliness, life over death. Clara Whitmore broke no law. She survived tragedy, found hope, and dared to love across the boundaries that small minds create. If that's a crime, then perhaps our laws need changing." The jury deliberated for 3 hours. The courtroom was packed when they returned, tension thick as desert dust. "We find the defendant," the foreman said slowly, "not guilty of all charges." The courtroom erupted. Some cheered. Others booed. Judge Thornton banged his gavel repeatedly. "Order! Order!" when quiet finally returned. He fixed Clara with a stern look. "Mrs. Whitmore, or whatever you call yourself now, this court finds you innocent of legal wrongdoing. But I warn you, the territory may not be so forgiving. You've chosen a hard path." "I've chosen my path," Clara said simply. "That's all anyone can do." Outside the courthouse, a crowd had gathered. Clara and Taza emerged to a mixture of hostility and curiosity. Some spat at their feet, others merely stared. But a few, a very few, nodded with what might have been respect. "Clara, Mrs. Whitmore!" A young woman pushed through the crowd. Clara recognized her. Mary Sullivan, the schoolteacher's daughter from Mercy's Bend. I wanted to say, what you did was brave. My father doesn't approve. But," she lowered her voice, "but I think love should matter more than color." Before Clara could respond, Mary pressed a small package into her hands and disappeared back into the crowd. Inside was a simple silver cross and a note. "For your new home. May God bless your courage." As they rode out of Silver Creek, Taza asked, "Do you regret coming back, facing their judgment?" "No," Clara said firmly. Running would have meant accepting their verdict before it was given. Now, whatever comes, we faced it with truth. They didn't return to grandfather's band immediately. Instead, they rode to the small ranch Taza had been building in a valley where Apache territory met Mexican land. It wasn't much, a simple adobe house, a corral, a well, but it was theirs. "This is where we begin," Taza said, helping her dismount. Not Apache, not white, something new. Over the following weeks, they worked side by side to build their life. Clara learned to make adobe bricks, tend horses Apache style, preserve meat for the long summers. Taza learned to read English better, to understand the legal papers that would protect their land claim. Visitors came, surprising in their variety. Ayana arrived with wedding gifts from grandfather's band. The Mexican trader brought supplies and gossip. Even Frederick Walsh rode out, bringing law books and news that their case had sparked debates in newspapers as far as San Francisco. Not all visitors were welcome. Riders sometimes passed, shouting slurs and threats. Once, someone poisoned their water barrel. Another time, Clara found a burning cross planted in their garden. But for each act of hate, there seemed to be a small kindness, vegetables left on their doorstep by unknown hands, a warning about raiders from a passing cowboy, a doctor who came when Taza was injured breaking a horse. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset paint the mountains purple and gold, Clara touched her belly where new life grew. She hadn't told Taza yet, savoring the secret a little longer. "Any regrets?" Taza asked, pulling her close. Clara thought of the comfortable life she might have had as a widow in some eastern city, the safety of conformity, the ease of acceptance. Then she looked at the man beside her, at the home they'd built, at the vast sky that held no prejudice. "Never," she said. "This is where I belong." Taza smiled, his hand covering hers on her belly as if he knew. "Our children will be bridges," he said softly, "between worlds, between peoples. It will not be easy for them. Nothing worth doing ever is." Clara replied, "But they'll be strong." "They'll have to be." As night fell, the desert came alive with its ancient songs. Coyotes called from the ridges, and an owl hooted from the cottonwoods by the stream. Inside their adobe home, oil lamps cast warm light on a life that shouldn't exist but did, a testament to the power of love over fear, choice over convention. Clara fingered the turquoise beads at her throat, thinking of all the women who'd worn them before, all who might wear them after. Each had their story of love and loss, courage and compromise. Now hers was woven into that history, another thread in the complex tapestry of the American West. "I have something to tell you," she said finally, taking Taza's hand and placing it firmly on her belly. "About our future." His eyes widened with understanding, then filled with joy and worry in equal measure. "When?" "Spring, when the desert blooms." They held each other as the stars emerged. Two people who'd found love in the ruins of tragedy, who'd built hope from the ashes of loss. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. It always did. But tonight, they were simply Clara and Taza. Proof that sometimes the human heart is stronger than all the barriers others would build. Their love story would be told in whispers and shouts, condemned and celebrated, used as a warning and an inspiration, but here, now, it was simply their truth, as real and enduring as the desert itself, as powerful as the choice to see common humanity where others saw only difference. The widow who'd stood alone at a grave had found her fierce Apache. The warrior who'd lost everything had found new purpose. Together, they'd written a different ending to their tale, not the one society scripted, but the one their hearts demanded. And in the vast, unforgiving beauty of the frontier, that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Clara and Taza's story. If you're listening to this tale, we'd love to know where in the world you're hearing it. Please share in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to Wild West Campfire for more stories of love, courage, and adventure from the American frontier. What did you think of Clara's choice? Would you have had the courage to follow your heart against all odds? Share your thoughts with our campfire community.